day. I can't even think well, but I want you by my side on my all day. I know I'm a fool, I don't even care. I want you to listen what I say. I love you, but it's so confusing. I'm winning at the same time losing. I love you, but it's so confusing. I'm winning at the same time losing. You
Hey there, and welcome to another map making video of mine. And today I want to show you a dungeon generator I created. Like you might have already guessed from the cinematics, this dungeon generator is available as objD package. That means you can integrate it in objD and generate your own dungeons with it. I want to walk you through how it works and how you can create something similar, obviously a bit more beautiful than this, because it is a objD package. It's highly customizable, so you can adjust the size, the way it generates, which structures it uses, and so on. So we will take a look at this later. For now I want to explain the concept to you. So I have loaded a slightly different version of this, and we always start with the start function. So in my case this would be the function dungeon start, and this generates a room that goes in all directions. I turned all the structured files into these arrows so we can see in which direction we are heading. If we take a closer look and enable the invisible entities, we can see we have some armor stands here. So we have the main armor stand here. We can actually toggle the rotation of it, and we can see it looks in this direction. So when we execute this start function, it loads our start structure here as well as our start armor stand, and it also generates 4 new armor stands that look away from the start. objD also gives us this function right here, so dungeon generate. And now we can go from this entity here. I also defined it to have the tag dungeon room. We can run the function at the position. What this will do is it will pick a random structure and generate new armor stands in the direction of the doors, in my case these arrows here. And of course we can do that over and over again. So I can do it with this armor stand again, and then again with this armor stand. And these would always generate a new armor stand with a specific tag, and the rotation is in the direction the door is looking. I have a system in place that loads the structures, also rotates them and mirrors them depending on the armor stand's direction. That way we get the structure loaded in the right place and everything fits together. I also have this dungeon clear function enabled, so this would just clear all the loaded space and the armor stands. Of course we can also execute these generate functions in our datapack. I configured it to run the generate function from each armor stand that is near the player, so me, and that way we get a dynamic loading. So I have to add myself a tag dungeon active, and we can immediately see if I come near to an armor stand, we can see it generates these structures. Of course you can also define how many iterations it should go through, so you can see it is not infinite, it has a clear end. In my case this is after 8 armor stands. This is an objD extension. That means you need objD for this. If you don't know what objD is, I recommend you this video up here, and also check out the documentation where you can install the whole thing. We want to create a new objD project, and we just type pub global activate objD, and this will install objD globally and enable us to generate a project. So to generate a project we have to type pub global run objD new to create a new objD project, and we name it dungeon, and this right here creates a few files to get us started with objD. So let's open that folder and open Visual Studio Code here. You can see we have some errors here. That's because we have the wrong version here. Currently we need the version 0.1.2, and we wanted the objD dungeon package, so we also need to include that, and that's the version 0.1.1 currently. Of course it will be updated in the future, and you need to enter the current version in here. So, but let's save that here, and on the side we can see it automatically ran the command pubget, and our errors are gone in our project. This project is going to be relatively simple, so we don't need this structure here, and in our index.dart obviously we have to remove the import here. I want also to have a different project name. Let's call it dungeon generator, and obviously I want to have it in the datapack folder, so one folder above. And then we want to generate a dungeon. Of course it gives us an error because it is not included in the core package of objD. So we can click this light bulb here and import it here. It's objD dungeon generator.dart. And then we can use the dungeon widget. And our first property is a pools property where we define our structure pools. Let's insert a map here. The name of our structure pool, let's call it test, and then we have to assign a structure pool to it. And here we need a list of structures. That's just a string pointing to our structure. So in my case this would be Minecraft column end. That's the end structure you saw. This structure pool can also have properties like front, left, right, mirror, and and with these properties you say where the doors for the next structure should appear. So front would be right straight, left is a left turn, right is a right turn, and mirror is a special property that we can use to mirror a structure, so that we just have to build a left turn and it automatically gets generated as right turn. For our end structure we don't have any more doors, so we don't have to specify it here, but let's add a split structure, and we obviously want to have the split structure loaded here. Oops, the split structure. This split structure actually goes to the left, so say left true and the right true. So this would just split our path and generate new structures in the left direction and the right direction. What this dungeon widget will do now is generate a data pack for us, and this generate function that I showed earlier, and that will randomly pick between the split type and the end type, pick a random structure out of this list here. So we could also add more structures here, and it would randomly choose one and insert it at the current position with the rotation. For the split structure pool it would also check if the left and right spaces are not occupied by another armor stand. And it would also generate a few more entities to generate new structure pools at the left and the right location. But our dungeon widget is not satisfied yet. It says the parameter pack is required. So we actually have to give it a pack to define in which pack it should generate. And let's give it a name called dungeon We also need a load function here, because the dungeon widget will actually extend from this file here and put some scoreboard values in it. We also need to customize which entities we want to spawn. So we can say summon, and here we can insert an area effect cloud, an armor stand, or just a summon widget. In my case, I use the armor stand for that. So let's pick the armor stand. The location is location.here. So just the current location. And I also want to give it some tags. So one tag would be dungeon room to mark a room. Another tag would be dungeon new to say that this is a new dungeon here. We actually want to run the generate function from this entity with the tag dungeon new. We also have to tell our dungeon widget from which entity we want to go from. We have to give it an entity property, and this entity has a type of entity type dot armor stand. We can just insert it like that. And this should also have the tags that we defined up here. So just copy it in there. And now our dungeon widget is ready, and we can press F5. And we can see on the sidebar here, this is actually a quite big project. It generates many files, but we have only this bit of code here, which is not that much. So I also loaded the dungeon generator datapack in, and you can see all the functions here. This gives us the generate.mc function, and it splits up into multiple other functions, each having a separate task. For example, we have one function that sets the structure block randomly. Then we do also have a function that adds some tags to it. So our entity actually gets some tags, for example, dungeon door right, dungeon door front. Then there is a separate function to rotate the structure block depending on the entity's rotation. And then we create some new entities depending on how you specified these properties here. Let's actually try that in Minecraft. So first we have to summon the armor stand with our specified tags. And then we can execute as this new armor stand and run the dungeon generate function from it. Well, this did not quite work. And it's pretty simple because we specified the pack, so in our case Minecraft, in our structure files. But if we take a look at the structure pool, this has an argument called pack. And the default pack is the current pack, so our pack down here, and that is not Minecraft. So we have to change the pack to Minecraft, the same down here, and this should generate the valid functions. So now we can run the function and we can see it placed our structure here, and it summoned some new armor stands here. And we can also go from the dungeon new entities and generate from there, and it randomly chooses. So we do have our generate function here, but I showed a few more files before. Let's take a look how you can do that. Remember, before we had also the start function. We can't find it in here because we have to specify it in an argument. We can say start, and then we need another structure pool for that. For the start area, remember it goes to all sites. So we want to load the Minecraft column start structure here. So we need to paste the pack again. If we generate it now, we can see there is a start.mc function and it executes something. And down here you can also see that the repeater is called, and that loops the dungeon generate function 4 times. with schedule command. Let's try that in game. Now we can just call the start function here. It generated this dungeon here. Of course we only have 2 variants of structures here, so this is pretty limited, but you can have more. I would also like to have a clear method here. Let's put that in, and we can just say after this entity here, I want to have a clear entity, and this just says which entities to clear. And this is pretty similar to this entity up here, but of course not all entities have the dungeon new tag. And now we can see we have the clear function here, and that just fills the area and kills the entity. So let's reload and call the dungeon clear function. Now we can call start again. So now I have replaced these structure pools with all available structure pools. You can set a bias here. A random percentage is calculated and it is divided by each category here. But with this bias we can override that and give this, for example, a 5% chance. So if we generate that and take a look at the set structure function, we can see the ranges here from the percentage, and the last here have just 5% and every other has 15% chance to activate it. So let's reload and start it again, and we can see the generated dungeon is much bigger now because we have more exits. But we can also see there are some entities left here that just have an open end, and the dungeon extension also covers that, so we can fill these with an end. So obviously there is the start value, but there's also an end value, so we can just paste it in here, and that's pretty much the same as up here, just a structure pool with the structure end from Minecraft, and we can generate that, and we can see here is a new function that loads the structure block, and in the generate.mc function there's also some bits added here. But let's try it in the game. We just reload it and clear it, and then we can say start again, and we can see the dungeon is completed. Every exit has as an end here, so there are no open spaces. So there are a few more arguments here. You can set the iterations, for example. So by default it is 5, I believe. Yes. And yeah, we can set it to 8, and that's just the amount of armor stands that get generated and how many nodes are in the dungeon. And we can also set the timer for the start or the delay between the single generations. By default that is 10. Let's set it to 3, so it should be a bit more faster now. We can also set this to -1, then we get completely rid of the timer and we can do it manually. So let's generate that and reload the game here and clear it again, and then we can start it again, and it is pretty fast. Oh, there's also another structure in there, but it's also a bit more less performant. So I hope this video was kinda helpful. I don't know if you can use this generator for your project. It's a cool first extension for objD. There's also a documentation linked in the description, so you can read everything in detail. And objD also got many updates, so I would recommend you to look at the changelog and try the framework. It's pretty awesome to define just some arguments and get a whole package that can generate a huge dungeon like that here. So I hope you liked this video on my creation, and see you soon. Bye!